If you enjoy listening to adventure stories, then you should visit thedihedral.com. You will find stories from other members of the community and read about climbing, life, and the outdoors. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Let's connect and climb on!
Climb on! Roll!
So welcome to the Dihedral podcast. This is Gaia, along with Carrot.
Hello.
And today we're joined by fellow rock climber, Brittany Ray Davis. All right, I said Brittany. Brittany.
It's okay.
Or Beeps. Brittany has over 10 years of climbing experience as a competitive climber, coach, and route setter. Brittany's been crushing rocks, especially throughout the southeast of the United States, but she has also been cranking worldwide. She has a reputation throughout the climbing community of being caring, kind, and compassionate, and she's also a tough climber with an unbelievable story of overcoming stupendous obstacles and enduring overwhelming hindrances toward the triumph of perseverance. So saying that, we feel so fortunate to have Brittany today on the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. Why are you guys trying to make me cry already? We haven't even started.
We try to start with the waterworks.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to start off by just asking a question about your personal history in rock climbing. So you've been climbing over 10 years, and I'm pretty sure everyone loves hearing somebody's origin story. So I'm just wondering if you can tell us when you started climbing, who brought you into climbing, and kind of if it's something that you really fell in love with right away, or if it was something that took some time for you to really latch onto it.
Yeah, totally. So I was in college. I was trying to impress a boy, and I found out that he worked at the rock climbing gym, and I was like, we lived in Florida, by the way, which there's no rocks in Florida. So he was like, oh, I work at the rock climbing gym. I was like, how do you rock climb in Florida? There's like no rocks. And he was like, well, just come to the gym sometime and check it out. And so I went. And, I was trying to impress him. So we went and he showed me how to do it and everything. And he kind of told me, he was like, you're a natural. And like, I fell in love with it. Cause I like solving puzzles and everything like that and stimulating my brain. And I had always wanted to do a sport in high school and everything like that, but I never got the opportunity to. Plus, I'm probably better off with being like a singular player. Cause if I have to do a team sport and somebody like checks me or something, like I'll be the person that gets kicked off of the team. So so I bought a year membership in full like the next day. I was like immediately hooked. And now that boy is my husband. So
what? That's so great.
Yeah.
I love everything about that story.
So it worked out. And how was the experience you getting in? Well, you were trying to surprise or impress this boy who's now your husband. But how was it like with the community? Because we always hear from other climbers that we interview or as well ourselves with our own experience. It's a very tight-knit, very connected community. What do you think like generates that, or what has been your experience in that regard?
Yeah, so the community at least at my gym that I started at, my home gym, was very small and very tight, and we hung out all the time. We had like Taco Tuesdays where we would get together and climb and then go get tacos all together afterwards and everything like that. And like at our wedding, probably 80% of the people that were there was the climbing gym. So like, yeah, it was super tight and everything. And then we moved. So we still keep in touch with a good amount of people there, but everybody kind of spread out from Florida because everybody wanted to get to real rock. So yeah.
We feel you. We live in Texas, so we know exactly what you mean. I mean, for us to go climbing real rock, we have to drive to go to Austin and specific areas, but there's not a lot of variety. So we do have friends who have moved to Colorado or North Carolina, etc., to be able to have more of that experience. So
yeah. So
I mean, your husband is actually a world-class route setter. I mean, he's known. His routes are known very well. He's amazing. I can just imagine the conversation that you guys get to have about moves that could change and things like that. That sounds great. But you guys moved, not to lay out your entire story, but eventually you ended up in North Carolina.
Yeah, so we moved from Florida to North Carolina. We went there to help open a new gym. and everything, because eventually down the road, like we would love to own and start our own gym. But we're broke. So we moved to North Carolina to try to learn like the ins and outs of starting a gym from the ground up and everything. And we were there for almost 5 years. We just recently moved at the beginning of the year to South Carolina to help open another gym here, because Greenville, South Carolina is like a bigger city. It's a little bit, it's more suited for us. Where we were in North Carolina, it was like a very small town, a whole bunch of white people, and not really anything else going on there. So we wanted to get away from from there. But the gym was awesome. The community there was great and everything. But we just recently moved at the beginning of the year, and then COVID happened. So
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I was wondering, it's, I guess, a coincidence, but you're actually our third guest with roots in the Carolinas. Really strong climbers come out of there. And I was hoping that you might be able to play the role of ambassador to climbing in the Carolinas. And so if somebody's trying to plan a trip, can you give us an explanation of why they should have Carolina or one of the Carolinas as a destination point? And also if you could tell us what we can expect to find at local crags that you've been to.
Me and my husband, we're mainly boulderers for the most part. So in the Carolinas, there's a huge outdoor boulder field there called Rumbling Bald. And there is also some rope climbing in that area as well. But the Carolinas is kind of centralized to a lot of the rock climbing that's in the Southeast. So if you're in one of the Carolinas, then it's really only like a day trip here and there to get to like most of the bigger crags and stuff. So that's why the Carolinas are so popular, I think. And a lot of the there's a ton of sport climbing and trad climbing in North Carolina, so a lot of the rope climbing that you might end up doing outside will end up being like a mixed format. So that's something to prepare for, because there's a lot of awesome routes and everything like that, but people get out there and that's when they get in trouble, is because they didn't realize it was a mixed route or something like that. So it's got a little bit of trad and a little bit of sport and everything. So
that sounds that's a great warning, but that sounds amazing, really amazing.
Now that we're leading into the climbing experience and everything, we want to mention what happened in March 2017 and go over that period of your life. You sustained a life-changing injury after you fell, and correct me if I'm wrong, 40 feet off a wall. So if possible, could you take us through that day and journey?
Totally.
What exactly happened?
So I was route setting that day. I was route setting on rope. I was pretty much by myself. Most of the crew had went down to another gym to help them set for a competition. And I was like, and all of the crew was like, it was people that hadn't really set a competition before. And I was like, oh, like, you guys go, I'll stay here and I'll do this stuff. Cause they all wanted to go get experience with doing that and whatnot. And so I was pretty much setting by myself on the rope, and the gym was not really open yet. So it was just bad practice at the time. We didn't realize that it was a thing that like there shouldn't be someone setting by themselves. And in the defense of my husband, who was the head route setter at the time, there was a setter that was there with me that morning. So I wasn't technically by myself, but he had to leave in an emergency. And so that's what left me by myself. But I was setting up on a fixed line and everything, because we were setting on an auto belay lane, but we didn't set on the actual auto belays. So I set up a fixed line, set my two routes that I set or whatever, and then came down and took my fixed line down to full run on the auto belays. But earlier on in the morning, the setter that was there with me had unclipped the auto belay and clipped it around the corner. And so as I was getting suited back up to go and forerun my routes, a member had just come in and like was asking me questions and stuff. And I got distracted for just like a split second, and then was talking with them, and then turned back around and was like, okay, I got to get back on the wall. And you know how on an auto belay, there's those banners that when you unclip, the banners kind of lay on the ground?
Yeah.
Well, I turned around from that split conversation, turned back to the wall, saw the banner on the ground, and thought that I had clipped myself into the audible, basically. And this is what we think happens, because the camera doesn't really show too much and everything like that. And I don't remember any of it because I had a major concussion. But I went up at the top of the wall, was like clipping in as I went to make changes, unclipping, and then got to the top of the wall, finished my last little bit, unclipped my pieces, and then jumped back, thinking that the audible was there, and it wasn't. So I basically threw myself from the top of the wall, thinking that the audible was there.
Oh my God.
I broke my L1 vertebrae, which is like your first part of your lumbar spine. It completely exploded and sent a piece of bone into my spinal cord, which instantly paralyzed me from the waist down. And then I also like smacked the crap out of my wrist and broke it really bad. I can show you guys pictures if you want, but yeah. So
yes, please.
So that happened. Okay, hang on, let me find them.
I mean, we've seen the pictures, but it's different seeing them and having someone explain them.
I ended up being able to recover like pretty well, a lot better than most people do in those circumstances. And I learned to walk again and all of that jazz. It's not perfect. I have a little bit of a pimp walk, as I like to say, but
way to embrace it.
Okay, so here's the X-ray of my spine. If I can get it to focus.
Oh wow. Yeah, for those of you listening, it is just shattered. Just shattered.
And then my wrist is gross. Where's my wrist one? This one is nasty.
Okay, yes. Oh my God.
Displaced completely.
It's literally next to your arm.
Yeah, the bones came out of my arm. So
Brittany, basically you documented it on your social media, on your Instagram account at least, which is Brittany Ray Davis, correct? Mm-hmm. And when we were going through doing our research, of course, that we always do before an interview, we saw that particular one, the wrist one. And I was telling Carrot, I was like, that looks like her bone just completely exposed.
Yeah.
But you said that you had a major concussion, that you were not conscious at all after the impact, right?
Well, so I don't remember any of it, but I was conscious apparently because I was able to recall my husband's name and his phone number and all of that stuff. To the EMTs and whatnot. I have some weird memories that like don't feel like memories. So I don't remember the accident. I don't remember anything until I woke up, like from all of my other surgeries and stuff. But I have like vague little hints that feel like dreams where like I guess I was in the emergency room and I just heard someone screaming bloody murder. And then I hear my husband saying like, can you stay with her? I can't be in here, because he doesn't do well in a hospital and around blood and everything like that. And then come to find out that actually did happen. And it was me screaming bloody murder because none of the morphine that they were giving me was working. Because I guess they said that I'm allergic to morphine, but that just means that it's not strong enough.
With the morphine experience, it's a hit or miss. I remember this has nothing to do, I guess, with the amount of pain that you felt. Uh-huh. I suffer from kidney stones, and this was way back when, and it was to the point where they said, we need to intervene you because it's not going to come out. It's too big. Yeah. And I had morphine. I was still in pain. I was like, this is not working. There is so much that they can give you. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't make you feel necessarily good. You're nauseous. You're definitely tripping in not a nice way either. It's not the greatest experience. It's amazing though how in that moment you were in pain, but now you can't even recall if that was actually your experience or...
It's unbelievable.
It's amazing. And that also leads to one of the questions that I had when you mentioned that you recovered well, especially for what you went through in comparison to other people's experience, and is overcoming an obstacle like that and in the time frame that you did requires a lot of mental fortitude. What were your motivators to keep pushing?
It's weird. I've had a crazy life and everything like that. Like I've gone through a lot of stuff as a kid and whatnot, and I think a lot of that kind of helped me. It kind of developed me into a person that like doesn't really give up whenever things get crappy. So I had that in me. And then when I woke up from my accident and everything, and they kind of explained like my situation, they call it a spinal cord injury, which doesn't do the situation justice at all, because when you hear, as a climber, you hear the word injury all the time. I got a finger injury, I hurt my knee, like blah 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 blah. So when they say spinal cord injury, you think like, oh, 6 to 8 weeks and we're good to go. So when they told me, like, I realized that my legs weren't moving and stuff like that, but I kind of figured that like in 6 to 8 weeks, it would just wake up. And that's not the case. So I just was a little naive in the beginning, like kind of thought that like, oh, if I just put my all into it in these 6 to 8 weeks, like everything will come back. So there was also that element. But at the same time, like I like to prove people wrong. And I had doctors saying that like, they would say, I would ask them like, well, what are my chances of me being able to walk again? And they'd be like, well, you were young and super fit when your accident happened. So it's pretty good, but we don't know. Like every doctor was just like, we don't know. We don't know. We don't know. I was like, you guys are the doctors. How do you not know? This is like your job. How do you not know? So there was like that doubt that I felt like the doctors were kind of doubting me. And then I had one specific dude that kept telling me that I needed to have a wheelchair when I went home. And yeah, sure, I was in a wheelchair, like in the actual rehab facility and stuff like that. But I was using a walker and everything on my own whenever I wasn't, like when I was being monitored. And so I was like, I don't need a wheelchair. Like, I'm not getting a wheelchair. I'm not leaving here in a wheelchair. And he was like, well, you're going to have to leave here in a wheelchair. And I was like, no, I'm not. And so I didn't. He still made me take one home, but it carried my little mini fridge out of the hospital and not me. So it's just, I don't know. I just like proving people wrong. And I'm a kind of a person, when I have a goal, that like, I have to meet that goal. So I had like little tiny goals along the way. And then my big goal was being able to get back to climbing. And then when I got back to climbing, my next big goal was being able to make it to nationals for paraclimbing and then worlds and whatnot. So yeah, just kind of a goal driven person.
As far as setting goals, I mean, just you did it. Like you made it to worlds. You made it to nationals with this unbelievable,
yeah,
I guess,
Yeah.
wall in your way that you just blasted through. But one of my favorite stories that I heard you tell, just doing some research just about the interview, is your first competition after the fall, where you were just like, I didn't do well except for maybe my first route. Could you go through that story and just tell us how that unfolded in that competition?
So I found paraclimbing through one of the Real Rocks, the one where Mo Beck, she's a competitor that is a lower amp on her arm. So that's how I found paraclimbing. I was like, oh snap. So even if I can't like get back to full, and I wasn't allowed to climb yet. I had to go a full year between my spinal fusion date until they considered my spine fused and safe for me to do anything, basically. So I could only lift like 20 pounds for an entire year. So when I went that climbing, I was like so weak. I could barely pull my ass off the ground. But yeah, so I found Mo and I found paraclimbing. And so before I was even allowed to start climbing, I applied for the Adapt climbing group. And they were like, yeah, like come be on the team. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, I don't know any of this stuff. I don't know anything. Even though I knew rock climbing competitions from my youth competitors and stuff throughout the years, like I'd taken kids to nationals and stuff like that, but it was completely different. Being a brand new person to the disability community and also to the paraclimbing community and not understanding, because those competitions run differently and whatnot. But yeah, so they don't have like a local season or regionals or divisionals or anything yet. So you kind of just go to nationals. So I went from not climbing at all to going to nationals, which feels like a huge deal or whatever. And I got to meet people who were climbers and climbers with disabilities. Like in one place, like it's only us climbing. So that was super cool because at my gym, I'm the only person there like with a disability and whatnot. And so that was a super fun experience. And I just went to go and meet people. I was not expecting anything because I'd only been back climbing for like 3 months maybe or whatever. And so I climbed my first route and I made it to the top and I did great. And I was like, oh, cool. And then the other ones that I did terrible. And then when the scores went up, I didn't even go and look because I was like, there's no way I did so bad. And someone came over to me and was like, oh, like you made it. I was like, what? Made it to where? And they were like, to Worlds, you get to go to Austria. And I was like, what?
That's so amazing.
So then I had to figure out how the hell I was going to pay to go to Austria. But yeah, so I ended up going to Austria, and I placed 8th in Austria, in the 8th in the world or whatever, just like being back climbing for like 6 months. Yeah. And then when I went to nationals, and I made the national team again the following year, in a much better spot. Like I felt like I actually earned my spot. And then at Worlds, I made it to finals, which was like my goal. I knew that I wasn't strong enough because in my category that I climb in, so you climb in categories that are similar to your disability and whatnot, but my category is the most broadest category. So there's people like me who don't really have full control over their lower limbs, but then there are people that are still climbing that have like MS or scoliosis or something like that. So their limbs are still fully functioning. They just have some other elements going on. So knowing that like my lower limbs don't work nearly as good as those climbers, I was like, man, like making it to the podium realistically against those people is going to be kind of hard. So me making it to finals was my big goal, and I made it. And then I did terrible.
Oh no.
Hey, you made it though.
Yeah.
Where was Worlds last year?
It was in Briançon, France.
Amazing.
Oh, what about this year? Did they have to cancel it due to coronavirus?
Yes, so they had to cancel that and Worlds. They just announced that we're going to be doing some odd like cyber format where like local gyms can say that like, oh, this route is for this category, and if you go and climb it, you like mark down on an app that you did it, and then somehow down the road it qualifies you or whatever. We don't really know a whole lot, but it's going to be some weird like cyber format where we're like, we can go to any gym that decides to say that like they're going to participate in this, and then you climb around and mark how you did on it. So
good.
Should be interesting.
So, I just want to back up for a second because I feel like you went over this and I wasn't sure if I caught it right. I
talk a lot, sorry.
No, it's great. You registered for nationals before you could even really climb at all, just with the idea that no, I'll be fine. By the time nationals gets here, I can climb. So
yeah, I was like, well, I wasn't expecting anything. I was like, I'm just gonna go and like, if I pull off the ground, I pull off the ground. But if not, then I get to meet people that are in a similar boat to me. Because so for me, when I was newly injured and everything, you want to find somebody that like you feel a connection to, because I have a super supportive husband and family and everything like that, but they just, as much as they try, they won't understand some of the things that you go through and whatnot, and some of the things that you feel and everything. And so I tried to find people that were similar to me, and I found people that had like a similar injury to me, but they weren't active before their injury. So I wanted to find someone that had been climbing before their injury, because everything that like the doctors say is like, well, like it's weird. It's like a brain chemistry type of thing where if your brain was doing these types of activities before your injury, and you're able to get back to those types of injuries back to those types of activities after your injury, your brain kind of like has a way to link those two together. And so there was no one that I knew that was like that. So I went searching for people and everything. I kind of lost my train of thought here. What was I talking about?
I mean, that even just that's a really interesting story. It kind of just you were talking about looking for support, even though your family obviously are very supportive of you, somebody who's maybe gone through it that you could talk to. Yeah. Yeah.
So I just wanted to find climbers that had been injured. And there still wasn't, even when I went to nationals, like I was the only person there that had like a climbing injury that ended up putting me in the spot that I was in. But there were like very specific, at least I could relate to them in a climbing sense of like, okay, well, your ankle doesn't really support you in this sense. So how are you climbing? And like, it's one of those things. So, and so when you climb, you don't want to use your knee because you look like a Gumby or whatever. In paraclimbing, you use your knee because your ankle doesn't work. So you use your knee to push up on something sometimes. And it's just a part of it. And so it was one of those things when I was training for nationals and worlds and stuff like that, my brain was still the V6, V7 climber outside before my accident, and I had all of those like route setting things where I'm like, no, I can't go off route, and no, I can't do this, and no, I can't use my knee. What? That's bad technique, blah, 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 blah. And so me watching other climbers that have a similar thing to me, I was like, oh shit. I was like, I could use my knee. Why didn't I do that? And so it's just one of those things where like, you kind of have to like give up some of those stereotypes from not being injured. So.
And not only stereotypes, but those, see, I mispronounce some words sometimes. Those habits that you used to have, because it's like your brain's trying to do something, but then your body redirects. It's just a different experience. But it's good that at least you were accepting of these changes, because I feel that sometimes we block ourselves because we are so used to doing things a certain way that we end up putting more challenges than we should to ourselves. I don't know if that made any sense at all.
No, it definitely makes sense. And it's something that I still do even now. Like I still will like, I'm like, well, like I really want to like, so I can't really fall. But I still love bouldering. Like bouldering is still my thing that I love. I have grown to enjoy climbing on a rope, but I still can't I can't sport climb unless it's on a top rope, because I can't risk falling. And like, you would think that if they were going to put metal in people's body, they would make it to where it doesn't break, but that's not a thing. So I'm really I've heard about people when they've like had spinal fusions where like they bend over to tie their shoe and their metal snaps and stuff. And so I just don't want to risk like taking a lead fall and my harness cinching up right on that rod and it just snapping and me being back to square one. And then bouldering, I can take little falls, but my ankle on my left side is still like super floppy. And so I could easily break that thing like at any time. So when I climb, I have to constantly like step back. Like I have to get to a certain height on a boulder and be like, I could just do this last move and say, and like officially say that I did this boulder or whatever, or I could just do the smart thing and say that this is my finish hold. That move really doesn't add anything else to the route for me, and I'm done. Like, so it's one of those things where like, I still struggle with that because I am a competitive person and I do still want to get back to 100%, but it's probably not gonna get there at this point because it's been so long. So I still just have to like kind of lower that ceiling for myself sometimes, which is super hard for me as a person.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions that keep popping up with all your stories. I just love them. But my dad was paraplegic. He was unable to use the right side of his body, and he had a stroke at 21. So a lot of the stuff that you talk about is stuff that I've watched him deal with both mentally and physically. But
yeah,
you know, he wasn't initially a left-hander, and he became very strong with his left hand. I'm wondering what you could tell us about how you're compensating for other shortcomings, where you might not be able to use your ankle, but are you more of like a powerful climber through your arms?
Person.
Yeah. Or you're a knee. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that's a very good point. I before my injury, I was a very technical climber. I loved slab. I loved the tiniest little crimps, tiniest little feet. I loved having my feet pop and me slam my face into a wall. Like I loved that stuff.
So tough.
And I love doing little powerful moves, little baby powerful moves, but that wasn't my deal. And so now I have to climb very powerful. I have to climb like more like a dude is how I say, like I have to just I have to use my upper body, and I have to pull really freaking hard. And I have my left foot, like if I'm on a vert, I can use my left foot a little bit. But if I'm in an overhang, my left foot does not stay on at all. Like I don't have the dorsiflexion. So when you point your toe down and put like some toe pressure into things, I don't have that. It's just kind of a floppy little windsock. So I use my right foot a lot. And so I end up having to like jump a little bit or do little powerful types of moves that I wasn't able or that I didn't want to do before, but now I'm kind of forced to. I have to. And I'm short, so that doesn't help.
So you were mentioning the transition between going from your previous experience of climbing to then starting to do or embarking on this new journey, and you mentioned the adaptive climbing team.
Yeah.
You use that. So how would you define it to people who have never heard of it?
How would I define the adaptive climbing group?
Or the process, everything, how it differs from your previous experience.
Oh, well, I mean, it's almost like being on a climbing team, but it's people that are in a similar, they have a disability. They're either a lower amp or an upper amp. They've got something neurological going on and stuff like that. So it's just being a part of a group that has you climb similarly, or you can at least relate to each other better than climbing with not injured people. Because there are times whenever like I would climb and stuff in the gym with my friends that are not injured, and some random person that doesn't know what's going on with me would be like, oh, why aren't you using that foot? You need to use that foot. And I would be like, can't use that foot.
That's amazing.
I imagine you in the middle of a climb just putting all your effort just to flip up on the person. Like, give me 1 second.
So it's just one of those things where like when you're climbing with your adaptive friends and stuff like that, like you guys just kind of ask each other like, how the hell are you doing that move? Because, or you know that this person has more strength in this aspect and whatnot, so you like watch them, and so you learn in different ways. So you learn how to compensate different ways from your adaptive friends, whereas your able-bodied friends they don't necessarily understand too much, but they're good because they can spot you really well.
That's interesting. Gaia was asking earlier just about the climbing community, and I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the difference between the community of adaptive climbers versus just the straight up climbing community. I imagine there's a lot of overlaps and similarities as far as support go, but I'm wondering if you notice any differences, or are they just the same?
I mean, for the most part, they're the same. We're all obsessed with climbing. We all want to eat food and drink booze and go rock climbing. Like that's kind of who we are. And we're also like super competitive. Where the differences are that I've found is that people in the adaptive community are a lot more accepting of people. Like they don't give a shit how hard you climb or how hard you don't climb or whatever. Like that's not a thing that's on their radar for the most part or whatever. And they have way better senses of humor. They're way more fun human beings to be around because we've all kind of been through some terrible things, and there's like a part of you that has to kind of learn how to joke quite a bit. So we're all like pretty funny. And so things get rowdy though with the adaptive community. Like they get rowdy. It's pretty funny.
No, that sounds great. I don't know. I think you're right. Like there's this thing sometimes, and climbing communities are great. They're so supportive, and they want you to do your best, and all these things that we all know about. But you know, sometimes all of us are guilty of grade chasing, or people. I don't know about shaming you, but if you're just climbing for fun, sometimes it's almost like you feel guilty that you're just climbing something below your grade, or you're just there to chill, or something. Like, why aren't you getting on these hard routes, or why aren't you doing things like that? So that actually sounds kind of refreshing that people are like, yeah, you know, just go ahead, do something. Let me see what I can do to help you out. That sounds great.
Yeah, no, where I struggle the most with, like I still love going outside climbing and everything like that, but I don't get to go outside climbing with my adaptive friends. Like that still I haven't been able to go outside climbing with them. I've only climbed in competitions and in gyms with them. And that's just because they live like way far away from me. But I still go on outdoor climbing trips with my able-bodied friends, but this is where I struggle, and it's because I can't really hike as fast as they can. I have to move very, very slow sometimes, especially on like a scree field type of thing, because like I said, like I've got the wonky ankle. And if I take one wrong, just micro wrong step, I can break that thing and then our whole trip is ruined. So I have to move really slow. So I feel bad about that. And then they're all climbing like super hard stuff that I would have been able to climb prior to the injury, but now I'm not. And now I'm climbing like pretty well below that. So I feel bad because then they have to go and find me a specific route to get on, and I can't, or they have to like rope gun it for me because I don't feel comfortable being up at the top of the wall that long, like that type of thing. So there's just a lot of things that I struggle with now because of being different or whatever. So that's just like some hard stuff that I deal with where it kind of makes me not want to go outside climbing because I just feel like a burden. But no one has ever expressed that at all. It's just kind of like me putting that weight on myself.
Yeah, I mean, it happens to different extents. Of course, extreme or in outdoor activities have those components. I used to be very active in trail running and ultra marathons and everything. Then I got pregnant when I was very young, 19. I moved from countries and I stopped doing the discipline. But we started watching a show the other day. It's called the toughest race, Eco Challenge, which is one of the toughest adventure races in the world. And we were looking at the team dynamics, and you would have these teams that would say, this guy, his bike broke and he was just crying because he said, I don't want my team, or I don't want to feel like a burden to my team because I know that they have all these people counting, or they have dreams and things like this. Or the other one's like, broke my finger, we had to withdraw from the competition, I didn't want to be a burden to my team. You start feeling there's this sense of I don't know, I don't even would interconnected and responsibility. It's like you breathe the same thing. You want to explore, you want to adventure, but you don't want to. So I know this is like far-fetched, but when you were talking about that wasn't what I was thinking about. So when Carrot was like, you asked a question, I was like, I was thinking about the Eco Challenge. So I'll share that story. But we know that you mentioned at the beginning of the interview that you moved from North Carolina to South Carolina.
Yes.
Is that correct? And now you're working at a different gym. Is this true?
Well, actually, it's not right now. COVID has put a wrench in the works, so I'm actually unemployed. But it's okay. It's still supposedly going to be happening soon. So fingers crossed that works, because it is basically a bouldering only gym. But it's going to be super sick. It's going to be really cool.
Yeah, we were kind of stalking the place online.
Yeah.
So it's a brand new gym, right? Like
It has not even been built yet. Like it's an old mill that's being turned into a bunch of different businesses, and ours is the first one going in.
And can we talk about the name of this gym?
I mean, yeah, it's raccoon climbing, and it's raccoon climbing community. So it's like not raccoon climbing gym, it's raccoon climbing community. Because for us, like rock climbing is a community, like it's our family. Like for me and Aaron, like my husband, we spend more time at the gym and with those people than we do with our actual family because like we're just there so much. And like we don't have kids or anything, we just have a dog. But all of our climbing team kids that we've had over the years, like they're our family. Like we might not get to talk to them as much as we did before, but like they're always a part of our lives. Like we always check in on them and see how they're doing and stuff like that. And it's weird to see a kid like as a D climber, and then now they're like, and they're in college. It's super weird.
We go back to the community aspect. See, this is how present it is. So to all the listeners and people on Twitch, if you want a big sense of community, you need to start climbing. Like, if we haven't convinced you yet.
For sure.
Talking about Twitch, so you're active on Twitch.
Yes, yeah.
So can you guide us through what you do on Twitch? What do you stream?
So people stream pretty much anything, but it's mostly gamers. So I stream some video games and stuff, but I also do cooking streams twice a week. I also do like a true crime stream where I like find a murder and I research and talk about it and stuff. yeah. So
That sounds so
it's like
amazing.
free TV, basically.
I don't know if you've done this or not. I don't really know how to play video games. I wish I did because like isn't there Mario Olympics is having like a climbing
Do
thing?
what?
Like I think on Mario Olympics coming out for 2020 there's a climbing video game in there.
Really?
Yeah, and I'm wondering if there's a way for us to con you into like live streaming some
Oh,
Mario.
I would do that totally.
All
I
right,
would
you gotta
totally
let us
do
know.
that. I'm just
We're-
gonna find that.
we're gonna
There's only
tune-
like a few games where you get to like clamor for a second, and that's like what is it called? Assassin's Creed or something like that. But there's not like any actual like legit climbing in there.
Yeah, you got to check it out. I guess it's just the Mario characters, and there's holds, and like they're just it's based
That's
after what
so
climbing
funny.
was
Okay, I'm
supposed
gonna
to be.
write it down.
Please
so I can-
write it down. You got to do it. We're gonna tune in.
It's for the Olympics?
Yeah, so you know how climbing was supposed to be in the
Yeah.
Olympics this year, and so they basically took all the games that were going to be in the
Why is
Olympics.
Mario a part of it? That's so strange.
I think it's called Mario Olympics or something like that. So
Oh.
you can be like, I don't know for sure. I've never played it, and like I said, I'm not exactly an expert at
now
video games.
I need to know about this.
You gotta dig deep into this. I think Yoshi can climb. You know, you can get any of the characters up on the
What?
wall.
My first car that I got when I was like 16, I made my tag say "It's a me," so I was like,
Oh yeah,
"Not you."
that's awesome.
You're speaking the truth though, because if not, Brittany's gonna be very disappointed.
I'm gonna be so mad.
No,
I'm gonna be so mad.
it's out there. I'm like 80% sure, maybe 85.
Oh my gosh.
So we usually like to sort of close down the conversation with more of a lighthearted discussion, and hopefully you'll be able to engage this. As we were just, I call, doing some research or some background on learning about you. And of course, we learned a little bit about your husband as well. And in multiple places, we've seen quotes from The Office. And so in that,
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I can only assume you're a fan of The Office. So we put together a few questions that sort of intermingle The Office with climbing. And we're
Oh
hoping
my
you can
gosh,
let us
this
know.
is amazing. I'm so excited.
All right. So anyway, let me start off. This is my first question. So you're working the crux of a sketchy project, and you could pick one Office character to belay you. Who are you picking?
Oh God. Jim.
Oh, nice. Okay, how come?
Because he's tall, so he's heavy, and and he's smart enough to where he won't drop me, but we can still have fun.
Yeah, I agree. I was trying to think, what would I say? I ended up picking Dwight. I was just like, there's no way that Dwight's cutting corners. Like everything's going to be pristine and safe. So
Dwight is just going to be like critiquing you the whole way, so you're just going to be pissed the whole time.
the moment you said fun with Jim, I was like, yeah, sometimes fun supersedes safety, I guess. Anyway, Gaia, what do you have?
I don't know. It's funny because I listen. Brittany, don't hate me, but I've never
No, you're
seen
fine.
The Office like ever. So it's interesting. I'm going to read this question's full credit to Carrot. He was the one who came up with everything because
Okay.
he's an Office fan too. Okay, so you and Dwight are driving to the crack. You have 3 open spots in the back. Who else gets an invite?
From The Office,
Correct.
From The Office.
Yeah.
Oscar, Kevin, and Dwight. I think I'd have Dwight because he would just add comic relief. We could just be mean to him, and he would find it funny.
Man, that sounds like the best climbing trip ever. All right, so here's another one. You're going to Red River Gorge. You're camping at Miguel's. You get to pick one character from The Office that you have to share a tent with. Who would that be?
Oh no! I have to share a tent with them. Probably just Angela because she's small. She's tiny.
Oh my God, that's so smart. Yeah, that's good. I'm like, who would have the best stories? And I was like, oh, yeah, Angela's the right choice. Okay, here's one that I came up with. It's, I don't know. I'm on the fence. I'm really curious to hear what you would say. So Creed wants to put up some new routes in Boone.
Oh God!
It's gonna be just you, him, and a sack of mung beans.
Oh no!
Would you join him?
Yes, just because I want to see what happens.
That's so great. That's a climber right there. Sure, why not?
Okay, true or false? Yeah. True or false? An Office-style show set at a climbing gym would be great, and yes or no, justify your answer.
Yes, for sure. Because like there's different roles, like just like in the office there's different roles. Like I mean, so I've worked at a climbing gym for a long time, and I have a thing where like, I mean, I work behind the desk. I know all of the owners, the managers, the staff, like the reception, like all of those people, the salesmen and all of that. Like it would work. It would completely work.
I feel like we need to find a way to make that happen
I
somehow.
know, we totally should.
So this is our last question pertaining to the office, but I'm going to sneak in one more question
Okay.
after. So if you had to pick one office character to play you in the Climbing Gym reboot, who would play Brittany?
Jim.
Oh, nice. I like it. I can see the humor thing getting involved there for sure. Yeah. So one thing that we just glossed over, and I was hoping you could come back to it. So there's this young Brittany living in Florida, likes this guy, goes to this climbing gym, and then you get married. But we missed the middle part of that story. Like, what was the first date? Like, who made the first move? How did that go?
Oh, I mean, I made the first move. I stopped him. So we were in college, and I am terrible at history, and I had a history class that I was getting a B in because I'm an overachiever, I wanted an A. It was my first semester in college, and I wanted an A. So I asked the teacher, I was like, what can I do for extra credit? And she was like, go to this thing that student government's putting on, and like write a paper about it. I was like, all right, sure, whatever. So I go to it, and Aaron, my husband, is in student government because it helped him cover his like tuition for college, not because he actually wanted to be there. But so we got put at a table together. He was the person that was leading the discussion or whatever, and we just kind of like, hey, who are you? And so, but he was too shy to do anything. So I figured out where the student government building was, like what part of the building it was in. And they had like a little break room that was there, and regular like students could go and hang out in that break room. There's like a ping pong table and all that stuff. It was cool. It was a cool spot I never knew about. So I would like take my homework and go to that spot and just hang out at a table because I knew that he was obsessed with ping pong and that's where he was going to be. So I would just like be doing my homework, even though I never had homework. I would just be doing my homework and be like, and then he'd come over and say hey to me. So yeah, we kind of hit it off. I made him mad one time, and he didn't talk to me for like 6 months. And I want him back with chicken nuggets. So,
I feel like that's the way to any climber's heart. It's like tacos, you go a long way. Chicken nuggets go a long way.
When you said, I know he loves ping pong, so that would be the place he would be, I was like, damn, she's good. Like,
he's good. Sure.
That was the guy. She was definitely the guy. I don't know if you have any other question to add.
No, that was it. I needed to get to the bottom of that story.
Oh, I know. I have to make a comment. I never watched The Office, maybe just clips and everything, because I don't know if this is something about the climbing community, but people are obsessed with The Office. Like, it's a comment.
It's just a lot of people in general.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Maybe. Not from where I come from in Venezuela. We don't know. No. I do have friends that like it. I've just never had the time or the patience to go through it, but
it's very dry. You have to be into like the dry humor.
Okay, yes, because that's what I feel when I watch it. It's like, and those like abrupt cut like, camera angles, I'm like, I'm not used to it. So it would be a matter of. There's one thing though that I enjoyed so much. Apparently, there's an episode about a Belschnickel that's going to judge your year. We once in 2018 we did a Christmas winter road trip, and Carrot and we have a good friend, her name's Caitlin, are obsessed. I have a little one, and it was Christmas, and we were getting everything ready, and they were like, there's no Santa here, this is Belschnickel. To the point that a 5-year-old or 4-year-old, he was back then saying, this is, what is it, Belschnickel to judge your ear? Because my son doesn't say I was like, okay,
oh my
thank
gosh,
you, Office,
so adorable.
for bringing humor to our
Belschnickel instead of Santa.
That's so cute. Do you guys have pictures of this? I need to see these.
We do on our Instagram. Yeah. I mean, right now it's on the computer, so I won't be able. Yeah. There's actually one, and I think I posted. If not, we can send it to you. Where we have Tiago, which is like on top of Caitlin, and Caitlin's like, Belschnickel. So we posted it. I think it's on Instagram. It was just I mean, eventually T got sick of the Belschnickel spiel, but it was fun. It was when it lasted. So we'll send it to you if it's not on our Instagram feed somewhere.
Okay.
But I don't know. Okay, so towards the end of our sessions, we always give our guests the opportunity to plug something in, to add something about a project they're working on, or whatever they would like to share. So I don't know if there's anything you would like to add.
I mean, I have my Instagram that I use for like my regular like personal Instagram, and then I am streaming on Twitch. So, but I don't know if too many people are into that. So.
They should be, especially with climbing on
Mario.
Yeah, Mario.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun.
And then I was going to just ask if you have any specific resources for somebody who may be in the same boat as you, for maybe a place they can go to try to find people who are, struggling to overcome some obstacles, especially in the climbing world, or websites or anything like that.
I mean, there's not too many websites that I'm aware of that I found. It's really just like you want to connect to a person. So I have a lot of people that message me and ask me about my experience and stuff like that. So like I wanted to have that resource for me whenever I was newly injured, but there wasn't really that. So that's kind of why I started to document like everything with my injury and whatnot, so that if by chance someone ended up being a climber with a spinal cord injury, they would have someone to talk to. So I have a lot of people that actually message me on my Instagram and stuff for resources or stuff like that. I think that if they're newly injured, the best thing that they can do is definitely find someone to talk to. But the next best thing is getting into a neuro-specific training center, because they're the only ones that really know exactly how a spinal cord injury works. Because I've done physical therapy and stuff, but it didn't do too much for me. And physical therapy is bound by laws and regulation of insurance, whereas neuro training centers are not. So you pay out of pocket, but you have a much better chance of getting your mobility back.
Great. So. Brittany, thank you so much for talking to us today.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. This was so much fun. This might be the funnest one that I've done.
Oh, good.
I loved all the questions. They were so cool.
Before we I mispronounced, not live as in living. I hope we live a lot. I mean, leave. Okay, before we leave. So your Instagram again is Brittany Ray Davis.
Yes.
And your Twitch, for whoever's interested.
My Twitch name is I don't know if you want to play it, but it's Clam Slam 3000.
Perfect.
Clam Slam.
So it's you don't have to put this in there, but Clam Slam is the female version of a tea bag.
Nice.
So that happens a lot in video games, and because I'm the only female in the group of people that I play with, it's clam slamming. So
good. Yeah, I love it.
We've learned a little bit of everything
today.
Yeah,
we have. Go to it.